and our expenses were about $20,000. So we had a monthly deficit of $4,000, which is in line with our expectations in a year when we're getting along without our major grant makers. So are there any questions? Yeah, let's scroll up on the budget on the screen. The income of 16,183, and at the bottom, the expenditures of 20,664 for a difference of 4,481 in the red. So, are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next, we will now have our roll call. We have a commitment tonight. I'm going to ask someone from, this will be a representative. Brian will be taking commitments, and who will you be explaining? Brian, will you be explaining, or one of your other person?
So we actually have Shayna Solomon and Susie Wilcox who are going to describe what the core team training is. And I want to ask Mike if you would share the list, Mike, with me, or if you'd be willing to take commitments.
Sure, I would be glad to. Would you send Jim Zralik a link to this meeting?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
I'll let Shayna.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm not here to explain the workshop to you. I'm here to kind of get you excited about it. So we all meet here tonight. We're all different. We're all unique, but we all have some of the same goals. Does this make us stronger? Yes, it does. Strength and power comes from working together, working alongside others. Even Paul knew that when he wrote in 1 Corinthians verse 12. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all of its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free. And we were all given the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Now, if the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not, for that reason, stop being part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body, it would not, for that reason, stop being part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. If they were all but one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And the parts that we think are less honorable, we treat with special honor. And the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty. While our presentable parts need no special treatment, but God has put the body together, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concerns for each other. If one part suffers, each part suffers with it. If one part is honored, each part rejoices with it. That was something we did at my church this Sunday, and it reminded me so much of what we're trying to do. We're all different parts, we're all necessary, and we're all needed. I'm part of the A team at the First United Unitarian Universalist Church, and the A team stands for Action Team. And I joined this team about 2 years ago. We're the core team there, although we didn't know we were a core team. We connect with each other monthly. We support each other in all the endeavors, and we are the ones who reach out when Noah has demands that need to be done. We are all interchangeable, although we all have roles, and we all support what needs to get done in our church and for the greater good. So that makes me happy and makes me feel stronger to be a part of a core team. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Shayna, who's going to give you a little more information about the core team.
So the core teams are these groups of leaders within each congregation and organization that can act together to provide mutual support and also to act towards change, whether that's the big picture structural change or the smallest community change, adding a sidewalk in your neighborhood or an extra street light. And we had, maybe you've heard about this particular workshop before, and we had been framing it as a training, but we've switched the frame, not the framing, we've switched the focus of the event towards a collaborative workshop where we're going to frame the idea of core teams a little bit more. So if you're a little bit confused, don't worry. And also provide some really strong examples, but most of the time is going to be spent learning from each other, what is going well in core teams or core team-like structures in your congregations, what could go better in each of our congregations and organizations, what strategies can we employ to make core teams most effective or to build core teams in the first place. And importantly, we also want to start to identify together support mechanisms and structures so that core teams won't feel isolated and that we'll be able to work together as strongly as possible. Because this is about building that broader support structure, it's really, really important that we have absolutely as many congregations and organizations within NOAA represented in order to build that together and to learn from each other. So like Susie said, we're definitely greater than the sum of our parts. And this is something that we really need to build together. And I hope that you can carry that into this section on commitments. I can pass it to my Kaj, who I think is doing commitments.
And there we have it. You've heard what core teams are about, and we'd like to get some idea of what the numbers from each congregation or group for this core team training. And it's, I don't have it written on here, but stated again, it's July the 11th. Is that right? All right. July the 11th from 1 to 3:30. And what we'd like to do is to see how many people your congregation or group can send to this training. This is not something where we need 100 people from each congregation. That'd be great, but that's not really what we need. So let's start at the top. Alameda Christian Church, are you folks here?
3.
3, thank you. Anaheim Community of Catholics, are you folks here? Beach Creek Baptist Church, are you here? Belmont United Methodist.
We're here. We'll say 3.
Okay. Christ Church Cathedral. Clark Memorial United Methodist. Community Relations Commission of the Jewish Federation.
Sorry about that. Clark had 5.
Clark had 5. All right. I can see competition ramping up here. Community Relations Commission of the Jewish Federation. Are you all here? Congregation Micah?
3.
3, okay. Downtown Presbyterian Church? Eastwood Christian Church?
I'm gonna say 4.
4, okay. Edge Hill United Methodist?
2.
2, okay. Martha, if you don't mind muting yourself, I think noise is coming through. Thank you very much. Episcopal Diocese Beloved Community Commission?
3.
3, thank you. 15th Avenue Baptist Church?
2.
2, thank you. First Unitarian Universalist Church?
3.
3, okay, thank you. Friends of Friend Ministry?
1.
1. Glendale Baptist Church?
3.
3, great. Gordon Memorial United Methodist? Greater Bethel AME Church? Greater Nashville Unitarian Universalist Congregation?
2.
2, thank you. Howard Congregational Church?
2.
2. Kairos Ebenezer AME Church? Lee Chapel AME?
I'm going to say 2.
All right, thank you. MEA, Metro National Education Association. Metropolitan Interdenominational Church. Napier Luby Bar Association.
Hello, I'm
Uh-oh,
sorry, I was muted.
okay.
Metropolitan, I'm going to say 4.
4, okay, great. Napier Luby Bar Association. New Covenant Christian Church. Open Table Nashville. Organized Neighbors of Edge Hill. Payne Chapel AME Church.
2.
2, okay, thank you. Safer Schools. Second Presbyterian Church. SEIU Local 205.
5.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear, Marley.
5.
5, thank you, thank you. Spruce Street Baptist Church. St. Anne's Episcopal Church.
2.
2, okay, thank you. St. John AME Church.
1.
All right, thank you. St. Vincent's Catholic Church. The Temple, Congregation Ohabah Shalom.
We'll say 2. 2.
2, all right. The Village Church.
1.
1, okay. West End Synagogue.
2.
2, thank you. West End United Methodist. West Nashville Dream Center.
1.
1, thank you. Word of Life Christian Center International. All right, and it's going to take me a minute to make it do a total, but did I skip anybody? Is there anyone that was not called that would like to be called?
Where's the
Naaman's Retreat.
All right, Naaman's Retreat.
1.
Naaman's Retreat. Thank you. 1. Reverend Merritt, did I skip you?
Yes.
I
The Nashville
apologize.
District AME Church.
I apologize. Nashville District AME Church. And you wanted 100?
Well, we've got a person on who is part of one of my churches, Sister Snorton. So I'm saying 2.
All right.
Herself and me. And I do want you to know that there are 2 new pastors that I have, and we need to discuss them as far as membership.
That's
another.
wonderful. Thank you, Reverend.
Maybe I can commit those 2.
All right, thank you. Anybody else want to get on the list here if I didn't already call your name?
Brentwood,
Go ahead.
Brentwood United Methodist, 3.
3, okay. Anyone else?
Christ the King Catholic Church, 3 from our Race Relations Committee.
Christ the King, 3, very good. Anyone else?
Add me to the beloved community.
Oh, another person for Beloved Community?
Yes.
There it is, okay. 4, okay, thank you. Anyone else? Don't want to shut anybody out here. Okay, thank you very much.
What was the final total, Mike?
I'm trying to make Excel work for me here. Give me just a second.
Mike, if you could also at some point count the number of organizations that have made a commitment, that would be really wonderful.
All right. I got 68 people all together. 1, 2, 3. 27 organizations would be represented.
And could you give the hours again, please?
1 to 3:30.
July the 11th, 1 to 3:30. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If anyone else, you can contact us. When will we, Brian, when will we send out the invitation and for registration?
We can actually get that out tonight. I'm glad that you asked about that, Reverend Thompson. I'll go ahead and add that to the chat right now.
Oh, okay. And we have a first announcement right before we go into our breakout session. Reverend Handy had a special announcement. Is that from the IBE? Who is that? What group is that from?
Recruitment
Committee.
Recruitment Committee.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reverend Hanley, as has been stated. I am a member of Payne Chapel, where I sit under the leadership of Reverend Dr. W.A. Sinkfield. But I'm on assignment tonight to speak on behalf of the Recruitment Committee. We all know Noah builds power and organized people around values like social justice and racial equity in all of Nashville communities. We know there is a need for Noah, and there is a need for Noah to grow and become more representative of the broader Nashville community. Noah's recruitment team has resumed meetings and needs your help in recruiting new Noah members. Here's what I'm asking. What church, mosque, synagogue, union, neighborhood group, or nonprofit organization do you know that are making a difference in the community? Now imagine if we combine Noah efforts with their efforts, the difference we could make not only in our communities, but in the state. If you know an organization that Noah needs to strike up a conversation with, please go to the chat, place that organization's name and your name in the chat. Someone from the recruitment committee will follow up with you to discuss ways to move forward in bringing them into the Noah family. How does that sound? Are you ready? Because I'm so fired up, I can't be contained. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank the recruitment committee. We have about 3 minutes right before we have a breakout. Kay, can you make a very brief announcement about who we have as our guest at the next meeting, monthly meeting? Oh, I saw Kay.
Yes.
Okay, make that announcement very brief. We'll have.
I was multitasking, trying to communicate. Yes. Metro Social Services has a research department every year for about the past 10 years plus. This department has conducted and published a community needs assessment that looks at our community at a broad range of issues, many of them tied to the work that we do. The report is very informational. It's good data and information that I'd like for everyone to have at your fingertips. I have worked with this department for a number of years, and my colleagues and I have come to the conclusion that more needs to be done to get this information in the hands of our community members. And so they have offered, their team has offered to come do a presentation, a 15-minute presentation and a 10-minute question and answer session following that. At the July membership meeting, reviewing the data and the information in this report that covers important information about our community, our demographics, our housing, our education outcomes, you name it, it's there. And these folks, I've known them for a long time, they're all experts and they're very committed. And I'm excited about the opportunity for them to come and present to you and answer questions that you may have.
Okay, well, thank you. At this time, we're gonna ask Mike, are you ready to break out? And if you did not sign in earlier, you will have to stay on and then he will put you in one of our breakout sessions.
That's right. Thank you.
Let them know what the sessions are so that persons.
Yes, I will. Now, if you signed up ahead of time, you will know that our breakout sessions are affordable housing, criminal justice, education, and economic equity and jobs. And since I put that registration link together, our IVE group, Integrated Voter Engagement, they want to have a separate breakout. So if, when I open the rooms, if you are kicked to one of the other rooms and you'd like to be in the IVE room, come back. There's a place on your screen where you can say, leave the breakout room. Does everybody understand what I'm suggesting?
Yes.
Okay, well,
Sure.
I'm going to open the breakout rooms and most of you should go somewhere. Those of you who are still here, I'll try to get you in the right room. Thank you. Okay, the rooms are open, so you should see a little box pop up that says you're being invited to such and such a room.
So Mike, there was actually an easier way to stay here. The box says you're invited to this breakout room and you can click not now.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to know something I did today was easier.
To get into IVE, Mike, I was in education, but I clicked not now.
All right, so Spencer, you'd like to go in IVE?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, give me just a second. Okay, this is taking a little
Mike,
longer.
I did sign up for affordable housing, but I'm not put in there yet.
Okay, well, give me just a second. Okay. All right, I'm going to go down the list of people that seem unassigned. Brian, are you going in IVE? All right. Reverend Wiggins, where are you going?
Yeah, I registered. What's going on here, Mike?
Well, you have to register by 5:30 so I can get the information. Where do you want to go?
Hey, mine is education.
All right.
It was 5:30.
Bill
Thank you.
Howell. Bill Howell, where are you going?
Education.
All right. Steve Vinix going to affordable housing. Thank you. Janet Byers.
Affordable housing, please.
All right. Reverend Sinkfield. Lynn Hoyt.
Education, please.
All right. Shayna Solomon.
Staying here.
Education. Okay. Regina Davis.
Hey, Mike, it's Reverend Sinkfield. I couldn't unmute. Affordable housing, please.
Okay.
I'm an IVE, so I just rejected.
All right. Well, hang on just a minute. Reverend Lester. Reverend Lester, where did you want to go? Okay, Jim Zralik, where did you want to go?
He's saying IVE, Mike.
I said IVE, I was muted.
Okay, I just sent you there. Jim Zralik. Where would you like to go, Jim? I think you must be muted.
Frozen.
Okay, Elizabeth Jesse.
Criminal Justice Task Force.
Okay, David Metter.
Criminal justice.
All right, very good. Doug Lucas.
Education.
All right. Wanda Clay.
Affordable housing.
All right. Carolyn Davis. Anna Hodges.
Education, please.
Okay. Lydia Yosef.
Affordable housing, please. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay. Some of you all are still here. I'm sorry, this is harder to do it this way. Let me try one more thing here. Okay. Trouble is when you get assigned to a place, then I can't find you again. Spencer, where were you assigned before?
Education.
All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, and you just went to IVE. Shayna, where are you going?
IVE.
All right,
and I
thank
got a
you.
message to go to education.
All right, you should have just gotten one to go to IVE. Susie Wilcox, are you going to IVE?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, anybody else? Renee Castman?
IVE.
All right.
Oh, I'm supposed to be running the meeting, Mike, so if you can get me into IVE, that would be great.
All right, what were you in before?
Education.
Okay, thank you. All right, there you go.
Affordable housing.
All right, Jim. Okay, Carolyn Davis. Jim, you should have seen a little box pop up asking you to go to affordable housing. Jim?
Affordable housing, Carolyn.
Okay. All righty. Okay, Carolyn, I hope you saw a little box pop up. Okay, Jim. Okay.
For the Hills proposal, so that we could see ourselves all, we could see ourselves all in sort of a training continuum for Heels. Does that make any sense? In other words, we're starting here and we're getting ready for implementation more in 2022, but we can't like just implement it right this fall. In other words, it's going to have to be a phased in kind of implementation, and the better horse to ride on would be the mental health co-op horse, because they're the one who has the horse and the saddle and the bridle and the bit, and they have the license. If that makes any sense.
Not really.
Well, I don't know. I have been pulling hairs out all afternoon trying to figure out some other way to do.
All right. Okay. I apologize for that. Whenever I enter the room as a co-host, it does that. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we
I don't
didn't-
know, Mike, you were in that meeting with Elliot Tinsley this afternoon. Did you get anything different than what I'm saying?
I wanted to hear what Sean had to say.
Okay.
No, I was just going to say that, when we got the emails, I added Joe to the emails so that he could see it, and because I felt like he would be the best person to respond. I did ask questions about that. Quante said she would do some digging, because I didn't understand the whole thing about no one else being able to do it. So I asked questions about that. I really don't have really a strong sense of, Elliot helped me to understand a little better, but I still don't have a huge sense of why another organization or another entity couldn't provide that service.
So isn't Centerstone able to provide those services as well?
Not in a crisis intervention mode. They are a licensed provider for mental health services outpatient, but they're not licensed to provide mobile crisis interventions. That's a different kind of license.
You know, Jane, I appreciate your thinking that there's going to be cooperation down the road, but quite frankly, I don't buy it. It ain't going to happen.
Okay, I'm here, Mike.
Great, great. All right, let's see if I can get you. You wanted to go into criminal justice, is that right?
Yes, please.
All right, give me just a second. Maybe I can get you in the right spot.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Okay, you should go.
The work session that happened today, the budget work session.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to. Did anybody else get to see it? I saw some of it, and what I saw, I can't remember her name. I think she's from the mental health co-op because I tuned in a little late. She was on there explaining to all the council members what Jane is trying to explain. These are only things that we've been told. But basically, they were just saying that the mental health co-op, they were telling the story of the mental health co-op not being ready, not being prepared, and being nervous about HEALS and doing the co-response model at the same time, and that there would have to be kind of onboarding, something that were steps to HEALS. That's what I was able to catch.
It looks like, from what I'm able to look at the state of Tennessee Department of Mental Health website, it appears that only one mental health provider per county is licensed for mobile crisis services. Although Centerstone is licensed for mobile crisis services in most counties in Middle Tennessee, it's not licensed in Davidson.
In Davidson County.
And the mental health cooperative is the only entity licensed in Davidson County, and it's not licensed anyplace else. Which means that the mental health cooperative basically has monopoly power over what happens with HEALS.
Yeah,
It's looking like that. Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. I mean, you know, if they say no, there's no HEALS. So I think we need to do something with the mental health co-op.
Now, if the budget is passed that we wanted with HEALS, would Metro be responsible for finding someone to do the work of it? Or is that our responsibility?
No, Metro isn't going to find anybody else because there is nobody else. In other words, the only licensed entity that can allow for that is Mental Health Co-op. So unless you had another agency that was already set up that wanted to compete for that contract.
Right. Maybe someone would want to apply or compete. I think in Colorado, that's what happened.
One thing that was.
Well, I mean, it's conceivable. I suppose Centerstone could be approached that way. There are a couple other mental health clinics that I mean, for example, Cahoots started out of a dental clinic, so, and every state does their licensing differently when it comes to mental health services. But I don't want us to become an enemy of mental health co-op. I don't want us to
No.
be in an adversarial position with them. But I know that this puts everything on hold, and we've worked also hard to get to this point. And I just think that we are sort of in a standing, sort of a hovering position right now to reorient and regather and rethink how to push this forward, but not right at this moment. In other words, let this budget cycle go and then, try again. I said to Elliot, I don't think that Mike or Sean or I fully grasp what you were saying this afternoon when you said we need to just pull it out of the budget. He said, well, where is it going to go? Where's that money going to go if mental health co-op won't take it, if they don't want the money? Apparently Keonsi Toombs even offered them to have that part of the money to begin planning with us for HEALS, and they said they didn't want the money.
One thing that was very helpful to me in listening to Elliot today was that he was basically saying that in any community like this, there's several pieces that we're going to need. We're going to need something like HEALS. We're going to need some kind of co-response thing, because in situations, for example, if there were someone that's suicidal, though with a gun, you probably do want a police officer to go with the mental health person there. What he was saying is we actually need a spectrum of mental health options. And he was also saying that if they go ahead and do this co-response model, which it seems like a lot of the political leaders have bought into, that in actually doing that, they will be creating some of the pieces we need for HEALS. For example, they would need to develop a training for the 911 operators. HEALS needs training for the 911 operators, right? Well, they would be doing this for the co-response model as well. So I guess what I got out of it is I think it could be just fine for us to continue pushing for mental health options. We continue pushing for mental health options and then grow this over the next year. The other thing he said that made sense to me is he said this Denver model, they actually started with a co-response model, the thing with the police officer and the mental health worker. And then they moved on to the other. So it can be a sequence. It's not necessarily an either or. So those things kind of made sense to me.
That's what we've been talking about for a while. And we met with the STAR organizer, and the co-response model had been together for 4 or 5 years before they started the STAR, which was the paramedic and the mental health provider. So it was right after the George Floyd killing. So there was community emphasis on a non-police model.
They had backing. They had that community backing.
$1 million, or no, $1.5 million that they got from, what was it, Jane? A bond issue or something like that.
And what city was that?
That was Denver.
Denver.
But we did hear about a training for 911 dispatchers, as well as the dual response team, as well as even NOAA, who's involved with the HEALS program. It's called Taking the Call, and it's a virtual first responder conference. It's presented by the U.S. Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Assistance, the Council of State Governments, Justice Center, and the University of Cincinnati. and that's in October 2021. It's free, it's online. So we could be part of encouraging some of our own team to be part of that, some of maybe the mental health co-op team, some of the dual response police officers. You know, it might be a time where we can try to do at least an effort at collaborating so that we can be in a better position to negotiate down the road. I'm just trying to think of how to save heels.
We think that the mental health co-op is going to be collecting the right data or willing to share the data about how that co-response model works. You know, if Elliot is right, and you've got to have a spectrum of services, and I would expect that he is right, then I would think that will be revealed in the data. And we could be an advocate, you know, using that data if we had access to it.
Well, I think it's supposed to be public information. You know, you're supposed to have access to it, not the privacy pieces of it, but the general data, the numbers and the areas and the type of call and the type of response and the length of time and all of those things. You know, the numerical data for public accessible types of information. Technically, the Community Oversight Board has the responsibility of doing research and data analysis of police policy and police programs. So they would be the logical ones to do that, unless somehow that turns people off to think that the COB would be an objective researcher or data analysis type of group to do that.
That was asked at the budget working session today. And then the response was they didn't know if that was if that fit in the parameters of the COB, but they were going to ask.
There are also a number of colleges and universities that do these kinds of studies of projects. So maybe there's a way the COB could link up with a college or university to do that.
The
John Jay
COB had
College.
agreed, the COB had agreed to send us data on the 911 calls about the
Right.
type of calls and how many were mentally ill, but we didn't ever receive that as far as I know.
Yeah,
I don't think they've started. Go ahead.
I don't know.
John.
If that should have started. But what happened was that the request from the NAACP trumped our request, and they just turned in that report at the last COB meet, not the last COB meeting, but the one before that, I think. And so yeah, they're like really behind on our request. Just FYI.
Well, would it be possible to meet with someone from Centerstone and the mental health co-op and see what can work out? I mean, is the mental health co-op against our program? Or are they just saying they're not capable or they don't feel safe doing
Not
it?
now. They're saying not now because they've got this other pilot program with the dual response police officers, and they say that they can't begin 2 pilots simultaneously. They don't have
But can
time.
another agency apply for the status that they have? Or is it like Erwin said, they have the monopoly and it's going to stay that way?
Well, I guess you'd have to get the other agency to make an application.
What would it be for emergency services?
It would be for crisis intervention services, mobile crisis.
I don't know the people at Centerstone. I don't have the leadership.
Well,
I don't know the leadership.
I know of them. I'm not like close to them. Somebody that might be willing to go to bat for us on that would be Dan Eisenstein. I don't know if Erwin, if you're at all in touch with Judge Eisenstein any longer.
I am, but I mean, I think Elliot would be a good person to make that contact. I mean, Elliot knows the universe.
If he would,
Yeah.
I think he's sort of burned out with all of this himself. He just, I guess when we had our conversation with him this afternoon, I've talked with him 2 times since we had the Zoom call with him. And he's frustrated that somehow we didn't understand his initial direction to us to just don't try to push heels any farther than we are at this point. And I said, well, if you had really intended for that to be the goal, I don't think Mike and Sean and I would still be encouraging our task force members to contact city council people, because that's what we're still
Exactly.
doing.
Because
So
Joe was all gun ho and just go for it. And he was the one that worked with him on it.
well,
If he
but
did.
then I think they don't always see eye to eye either. They have different
Oh,
perspectives on
geez.
this. So, this is what we're running into when you're trying to work out these details. You run up against these little barriers, these little obstacles, and they become bigger when you can't get them.
I was wondering if anybody else had questions, because there's been a number of people that haven't spoken.
I wouldn't say that I have questions, but I think that what I'm understanding is that there's no sense in pushing any longer, and that we regroup and gather information and move forward for this to be something that heals comes in a process, that the footwork is done for heals to be down the road a little further, and that might serve to work better. Who knows?
Can I say one thing? I don't know what we want to do, but from watching that budget working session today, it sounded like Hills was shot down and there was nothing else. There was no more to talk about from the perspective of the council. I just want to put that out there. Like, regardless of if we heard anything or not, even if we had no prior knowledge of where this was headed, that had already been shared with council. And when I tuned in, Delicia Porterfield was talking about how she was so disappointed, and it was sad, and they really wanted heels, and she tried to she was still advocating for it, but she was advocating for it in the future, like, since it can't happen now, what can we do to make sure that it happens? And she even flat out asked the woman from Mental Health Co-op. So,
well,
I just wanted to make that clear, that despite whatever meetings that we had, this was already being in the works. This was already in the works. So,
What was the response to her?
I didn't feel like the response was something that I felt really confident about. Like, oh yeah, I have a great sense that this is going to happen. It was kind of like, for me, you might read into it a different way, but it was just kind of like, yeah, that's what we're going to try to do, but it didn't sound like a promise, so.
Is there some way that we can contact the council and make it clear that we are very much in support of mental health options that do not send police officers by themselves, or some, I don't know. What I'm trying to do is find some way that we can let people know that we're going to be here. We're going to be continuously pushing for something like HEALS next year. And right now we're pushing for anything that will be better than what we have.
Well, we can come up with a statement to that effect. I mean, I can write that up overnight and get that out to everybody in the task force tomorrow, so that they don't have to waste time trying to email council people with the other push to keep HEALS in the budget. If HEALS can't stay in the budget, if it's not going to be a doable thing for this year, and we're planning for next year, then we may as well just talk about, as you said, Mike, the most important thing is keeping people safe and making sure that police interventions do not involve excessive force.
What do the rest of you think? Are there any particular kind of wording, or does this sound like it's total out in left field?
I agree with Jane's position that we should send something. And I think the major point is that we're going to continue, and that we want the police to not be the only ones that handle mental health position. So she can write it to incorporate all of the highlights of the conversation today. But I did have a question when you said that the mental health co-op is the only mental health agency that's licensed in Davidson County. So if you were to get HEALS, how would you do, how would that work? Would HEALS have to get licensed also beforehand, or it become a pilot program and during its pilot program become licensed? I mean, how do you plan to make that?
I guess what Joe was hoping for was that the mental health co-op would allow for that, for a second pilot like HEALS to run simultaneously with the dual response team.
Okay.
I guess, I mean, that's the only way it could work at this point. And he was thinking that Amanda Brock was in favor of that. And yet the more we heard today, Pam Womack, and from yesterday's emails with Keonsi Toombs, Pam Womack was saying no. And she's the other director. Amanda's, I think, the associate clinical director or the assistant clinical director, and Pam is the other one. So they are both the clinical directors of mental health co-op.
Okay, so it would come up under mental health co-op if it was to occur.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
I feel sort of embarrassed because I wrote all these letters and everything today.
I feel badly for all of us. I
know,
feel
but
embarrassed. I feel let down.
I don't want to give up. I want, if they're going to shoot us down, let them shoot us down and then we'll come up. I don't want to send the paragraph like put up the white flag. Oh, I'm sorry, mental health co-op didn't agree and they don't want to do it. No, let them do it. And then maybe some point there'll be some pressure on the mental health co-op. I'm really disappointed that they didn't support it more. And my son's part of mental health co-op. So it's hard for me to.
I think part of it is political, but I think I don't like to use that word loosely. I think most of it is territorial. This is their baby. Mental health co-op is their baby. It's their budget, it's their money, and they feel that, you know, we're sort of nudging in on their territory.
We are nudging. We are nudging. It's okay. That's what we do. We organize and we advocate and we do it. We take action, and that's not going to stop. But I don't want to put up the white flag. I guess this is so important.
I just wanted to chime in case anybody's not watching the chat. I got the sense that they were in the conversation that they were taking it out of the budget, like taking HEALS out of the substitute budget. And so if we want to keep pushing forward, then I don't even know. I know today was their last working session, so I don't even know what to do. This is my first experience with budget, so I don't know what we can do at this point.
I don't embarrass for, I mean, push HEAL, and if the mental health co-op makes a decision that we have no control over, they made a decision we have no control over.
Yeah.
I think the step going forward is trying to figure out, you know, first of all, as I said, put in the chat, I think that I think fundamentally we don't believe that, you know, police presence at an intervention where an individual is having a mental health crisis is going to turn out good. So we're going to be watching the operations co-response model very carefully, and we just then need to figure out an alternate strategy for getting mental health co-op, you know, onto and interested in the HEALS program. From what I can tell, it appears that only one entity can be licensed for or is licensed for mobile crisis services in any county in Tennessee. So if mental health co-op is the only one that's being licensed, you know, We're gonna have to figure out some way to work with them.
Erwin, I think
just
that's right. You know, makes me think that our energies should be focused directing on the co-op over time, kind of changing their position over time rather than focusing on the council. Because I think what we've learned from this is without mental health co-ops cooperation, we're not going to get anywhere.
Right, but we need to monitor what's happening with this co-response model.
That's right. And that's where we're going to use the data that's publicly available to kind of highlight what works and what doesn't work.
Well, all the more reason for us to work closely then with COB if they're willing to take on that task, which our meeting with them is June 23rd. So that would be a good time for us to bring up that need, not just for us, not just for the HEALS proposal, but just for the general education and purposes of planning for emergency mental health calls in all of Davidson County. You know, somebody has to be monitoring that for the sake and safety of our population. You know, not just to save a proposal, but so people's lives are saved. This is a public safety campaign, as far as I'm concerned.
So Joe is going to, he agreed to speak. I asked if he could speak at the next COB meeting because the police department will be there talking about the co-response model. And so we decided to dedicate a large portion of the COB meeting to mental health. And so, I mean, if you all have any suggestions about anybody else that we should invite, maybe the mental health co-op is an organization we need to invite as well. I'm open to that, and I'll pass it along to Jill Fitchard, so maybe she can get on that.
I thought we were going to speak, Sean.
At the meeting,
we had talked about having some parents and people who had experience with,
Joe is speaking there.
Yeah, but do you remember we talked about having some real life people who've had experiences with persons in their own family or loved ones with mental illness and how they fear calling the police. They don't feel comfortable calling the police for those kinds of emergencies.
Okay, I don't know if that was talked about. Was that talked about yesterday?
We talked about it. When was that, Elizabeth, that we talked about? It was
that was last night.
Last night.
And so Sean wasn't there.
Yeah, you weren't there. That's why. Yeah.
Just a time check, we have about 9 minutes, and I think there were a couple of people that were trying to get in a comment. Or maybe not.
Well, is that still going to happen at the COB that some of us are going to speak? I sent a PowerPoint to you, Jane, about it.
Okay.
So let me say this.
Thanks.
I know I'm sorry, Mike, I see you were trying to talk. It seemed that Joe, you know, when I asked Joe if he wanted, if he needed anything, I think he wants to speak on his own. As far as HEALS is concerned, we can talk to him and see. But if there is any type of public comment, typically that's done in advance. With the COB, maybe there is something, maybe there's a sign up, I don't know. I'm so used to us being virtual. So I don't know how that works in real, because most of my time on the COB has been virtual. So I don't know if you can just show up and speak, or if you have to and sign up there, or if that has to be done in advance.
Well, it used to be that there was a clipboard and you would arrive early and sign that clipboard that said, you know, are you going to be one of the speakers? Did you want to have time to speak? And you sign that clipboard and give it to Brenzy, remember?
Okay.
Yeah,
I know
that's how it used to be. I don't know.
Joe will be like the official person from NO.
Yeah. But Joe also needs to understand how things have changed a bit since he went out of town.
Okay, we have 7 minutes.
I think Mike wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of things. One is the concerns about data. That data is actually already being collected and will still be collected. It's reported to the health department. Angie Thompson, I think, is the one who collects it. She's
Angie?
just there. And also hospital ERs are reporting data about mentally ill persons who they see in their emergency rooms. Now, some of what we need is a synopsis of the data, not the raw data, because the raw data is patient specific, because they're tracking individuals. Obviously, we can't access that data, but we can. The health department does routinely collect that. Now, a second point about the licensing, the idea is that most counties that can only equip and afford to have one mobile crisis unit. But coupled with that mobile crisis response is also an obligation with the State Department of Mental Health to provide services exclusively for the seriously persistently mentally ill, SPMI. Those are the people who, were it not for outpatient services, would be in state asylums, which we used to have state asylums. But that's a major state function to address those people. The mental health co-op receives some funding from the state for that exact purpose. And that couples with the crisis response, because frequently those people are crisis responders. So I'm not sure that any other agency wants to undertake to be responsible for the not only crisis response, but the seriously persistently mentally ill. Because remember, those people who meet that category, unless they're already on disability, they ain't got no health insurance at all, because we haven't done Medicaid expansion either. So that is a lost leader, to put it mildly. That is very expensive. The co-op is covering that. So I'm not sure that that's an industry that a lot of other people want to finance their way into. So I would think that we can readily arrange after this month, because they're gearing up to implement this month with the co-response model. I would think they would be very glad to talk with us. We've not had, I don't remember a meeting where we've actually sat down with them to discuss some of these issues.
I like that idea, Mike. I would like to go. I mean, I know Pam Cooper and Womack, and before our
Amanda.
son got involved with Pam Womack at the time. I guess it's not now. But I've gone down there to talk with them, and I would love to do that, but I don't know that Joe would.
I have a quick question, and that is that we have about 4 minutes, and we're going to need to report something back to the whole group. And for me, it would not be accurate for somebody to say, oh, well, we're defeated. So I'd like to find some way that we're reporting more accurately what we're saying here. To my mind, anytime you're trying to really be about power, you have to recognize when you have to shift your focus. And in this particular way, we're having to shift our focus a little bit this year. We know we're going to be able to get the infrastructure built that will help HEALS later on. And we want to continue pressing the council for more mental health money, so that we're not just sending police officers out. Maybe that's not the wording, but do you see what I'm saying?
Well, and actually, I don't see this as a defeat. Long term, when we first started talking about this, Mike and you, Jane, and Pat and I went through all this, trying to get the police department to accept a co-response model. And we've done that now. By God, it's actually going online this month. So this is a victory, and now we want something more. Okay, great. So I agree with Mike. It can merge. We got it. The pieces can fit together here in a serial way.
It's just a different kind of challenge. And, Mike calls it a shift of focus, but it's probably a shift of focus and of strategy, that we're not working at the same, we're not working with the same players. We're working with perhaps a different set of players to establish some some more long-term relationships in terms of funding and participation with the HEALS model.
But our
Does
commitment
that
is
make
the
sense?
same. But our commitment is the same, and no one knows how to
Yeah.
be persistent as hell, right?
God knows hell is persistent. Okay, I think I can say that. Thanks, Mike. Both Mikes. Thank you, everybody. This was a good discussion. I think we actually weathered the storm.
Okay, I believe everyone is back at this moment, and we are going to go ahead and start our reports. Our first report, we ask you please be brief on these reports. Our first report will be from the Affordable Housing Task Force. I believe it'll be Kay.
Yes, I had to unmute myself.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. So we started out, we showed videos of NOAA representatives, some of us speaking at the budget hearing, particularly on affordable housing. And we thanked all of those that showed up, not only from the Affordable Housing Task Force Committee, but also to speak to our other task force concerns and platforms. We again reiterated the importance of communication with our council members. We don't know how the budget will turn out. We also have come to the conclusion that NOAA must start our engagement around the budget much earlier in the year, as early as January, because as Councilman Sean Parker shared with Martha, at this point, you know, the cake's pretty much already baked. And so those are learning moments for us, and we're going to figure out how to put together a timeline and a calendar for this kind of activity moving forward. We have many things happening in our community related to housing right now. Some are obviously quite concerning that we made announcements about that we went over. And then we also talked about the fact that NOAA is being looked at as someone that other entities want to have at the table. For example, a state advisory committee for use of TANF monies, and also a presence on the Industrial Development Board. So it's just an example of how NOAA's brand is growing and raising enough attention that they want us to be at the table. Now, the next question is, what's it gonna cost in terms of human capacity? How do we do that, and who will do it?
All right, thank you. Criminal Justice Task Force.
Hi, I'm Jane Gorm, and our breakout session focused mainly around the HEALS proposal, which we have found out is in the substitute budget. However, the mental health co-op, which would be the agency that would provide any kind of crisis services, because they're the only licensed provider to do that in Davidson County, they do not at this point in time want to do a HEALS type of pilot program alongside of the dual response or the co-response model that the police department is launching. So we are going to have to shift our focus somewhat and not focus so much on HEALS rolling out this fall, but rolling out next year and using this time in between to work with Mental Health Co-op and trying to get them to understand why the HEALS proposal is so crucial to eliminating any kind of violent response and ensuring people's safety and well-being, that we think it's a superior model with a track record. And so we just want to make sure that the council people we're contacting know that we have not given up on HEALS, even though it may not be implemented this fall, but we do not want police to be involved in mental health calls. And then there needs to be a nonviolent alternative to those kinds of crises. So that's what we'll continue to work on.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Economic equity and jobs.
Good evening. So I dropped a couple things in the chat, so please ignore me right now and just go down to the chat and look at it. One is NOAA's page, noaatn.org /moral budget. You can click on that, read all about our moral budget, but we are asking that you please support the substitute budget that was just mentioned. Council Lady Toombs, who came to our moral budget virtual town hall just today, she introduced a substitute budget. And the substitute budget is way better than the mayor's budget. And how this works is one of those gets to win in the end. So either the substitute budget's going to get more votes or the mayor's. So we'd love to have council member hear that the substitute budget, which includes this other funding, more on the issues that we were speaking of and caring about, are in Council Lady Toombs' budget. So just put that in your email. They need to hear from individual people. So please do that. The second thing is y'all have heard us talk a lot about the Nashville living wage. It's a campaign we wanted to launch post budget. We knew that the budget was really going to be on everyone's mind. So that should happen next Tuesday night. Also, please join me. I'll be down there next Tuesday night. Some of you were there also last Tuesday. Next Tuesday night is going to be the third reading of the Metro Council budget. So join us there. And it's going to be back at council up at City Hall. It's not going to be at the Music City Center. They announced that it would be up at City Hall. So meet us up there at 6 o'clock next Tuesday. But then as soon as that's done, we're going to start moving. So next Wednesday, there's going to be a soft launch of the Nashville Living Wage. You can register for it via Zoom. It's going to be from 9 to 10:15 in the morning. It's going to be a great opportunity for us to kind of look back inwardly. How are our congregations and unions and people we care about? What are we paying a living wage? What does that look like? And how do we have this conversation across the city for other companies that we care about? Are we a city that provides a living wage? So please join us next Wednesday from 9 to 10:15. Regina, there will be, I don't have it yet. I watched Council Lady Toombs talk about it today. I have not gotten it in writing yet. So I heard it on Metro Channel 3. She was talking about it, but I've not seen it. But yes, there will, as soon as that gets online, I'm sure we can all see copies of it. The Tennessean will probably have it out there too. But there's not a link yet to the substitute budget. Thank you.
Marley.
Yes, ma'am.
I could not, it said register here for that Wednesday morning Zoom, but I could not register there. The link didn't work.
Yeah, I put the email underneath that.
Oh, the email is under there? Okay.
Yeah, go send an email because I'm slow with technology sometimes. So I probably messed something up that Amy gave me. So, so feel free to email that one. Or Erwin, maybe you'll know a better way to drop in the chat box a link to that. Or Steve or someone else may.
I'll drop a link in the chat. Give me 2 seconds.
Steve.
Okay, thank you. Education Task Force. On mute.
Thank you. Thank you twice. It was lovely to open our meeting with Stephanie Rapp talking about the successes that we've had this year. And the successes in a capsule are the fact that this year, SEL was in the budget. Okay, all the years that we've been talking about it. It's in the budget, and council members who voted against it last year are speaking up for it this year. It's not perfect. It's not everything we wanted, but it is great progress from where we've come. And so it's great to celebrate when we have successes. That said, there's just been so much confusion and lack of transparency in what was in the original budget from MMPS, what was in the mayor's budget, both for SEL, but we are going to continue to contact our council members. And Marley, I think that's very helpful. Mostly we just want to ask them to support the substitute budget because council members have put additional money in the substitute budget for SEL. So regardless of whether we can figure it all out, it's definitely closer to what we want. Also, we got a report. I don't know how many of you know, but I want to give you a heads up that the state funding committee is working on a very ambitious statewide Day of Power and Prayer, or Prayer and Power, on August the 15th. That's a Sunday at 4 o'clock. So go ahead and get that in your calendar. It's still in the planning stages, but we hope to have huge attendance and have a very powerful day to refocus education on the needs of all our kids rather than on how much money or other bad laws they're making. I think that pretty much covers what we talked about. So thanks a million.
All right, thank you. IVE, that's Integrated Voters Engagement Working Group.
Yeah, hi, I'm Arlene Tuckman, and we had a wonderful group of 7 people. We hope more of you will join us next month. But we had a wonderful conversation. We talked about the core team workshop and just sat and basked in the fact that 27 organizations and 68 people have already signed on. We were thrilled with that. We talked about how to get more organizations participating, and we're hoping the executive committee of NOAA will help with that. And we talked about how to ensure attendance, and you who already signed up should expect some very gentle follow-up from members of the IVE committee who will thank you for agreeing to attend. We talked about what people hope to get for their organizations from this, from the core team. And people talked about generating more enthusiasm within their own organizations for NOAA issues. They talked about the possibility of doing more networking and for pulling in new people so that there's a more robust group in their organizations. And the next step is planning the agenda. We then talked about the Day of Power and Prayer. So IVE is the mobilizing arm of NOAA. And so actions like the Day of Power and Prayer certainly fall within our circle of influence. And again, we just have to think about how when these core teams are really up and going, that it will be so much easier for us, NOAA, as an organization to really bring out people for an event like this very important Day of Power and Prayer. And then we just talked about IVE's role in general in future actions that NOAA is already planning or will be planning, whether it's helping with messaging, whether it's setting up tables at events when it's appropriate that could perhaps help with voter registration, so that we can develop not only the mobilizing arm, but also the voter engagement arm, which is in our title. And the last thing I want to say is we spent quite a bit of time talking about the possible referendum on July 27th, and feel incredible urgency that we learn more about what we can do. We know that, actually, we just learned today that Nashville is part of a citywide group called Save Nashville Now. We don't really know enough about what that group is doing and what we, NOAA and IVE, might be doing to support that effort. And we would love to learn more so that we could start mobilizing to educate and make sure that people get to the ballot on July 27th, if that is what's going to happen.
All right, thank you. I want to thank our task force and working committees. We have just a few moments we are ahead. Do want to go back to make certain if do we have anyone tonight, if it's your first opportunity to join our monthly meeting. If you have, can you give us your name and organization or congregation or label you're with? Okay, I don't believe we have no one. I don't see anyone. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Mike for our closing evaluation.
Thank you. Now, you all have been to our meetings many, many times before, so you know our evaluations. The first thing is a feeling word. Put that in the chat. Put your feeling as you're leaving this meeting. What is your feeling? Relieved, feels like we're making headway, says Martha Carroll. Challenged, says Reverend Wiggins. Informed, updated, momentum, inspired, proud of Noah. Woohoo! Energized and anxious. Shayna, tell me about energized and anxious.
Sure. Energized to see all these people getting excited about core teams, and anxious, especially related to all of the challenges that both that includes, and also the challenges of the possibility of a referendum, and the other sort of hugeness of the work.
Good, thank you. Reverend Wiggins, you said challenged. Let's follow up with that. What are you thinking? Reverend Wiggins, I'm not hearing you. You may need to.
Yes, think about, sorry, the core team training.
Okay.
Feel challenged about that and getting people in my congregation involved in that.
Wonderful. Okay. I can't resist. Avi Poster said, proud of Noah. I'm pretty proud of Noah too, but I'd like to hear what Avi had to say.
Oh my God, I'm just listening to the breadth of what is on Noah's plate, and just proud at the voice that Noah raises. Just elated.
Thank you. Two more. Kim Trainer, you said anxious.
I did, because I'm trying to, it's just, we went over a whole lot, and just trying to figure out my place. Like, what can I do? You know, where would I best benefit the effort?
Good. It's what we all need to be doing. Thank you. And Muriel Bullock-Neal, you said accomplishment. Could you say something more about that? Well, maybe she's on mute. Okay, the second part of our evaluation is always performance. One thing we look at sometimes, did we start on time? You can just speak out. Did we start on time?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Are we ending on time? As long as I don't take too long. Why is that important? Why is that important? Why do we make such a big deal out of that?
Shows respect.
Shows respect. That's right. What else?
People are more likely to come if they know it's gonna run on time.
That's
I feel
right.
that way.
That's a big part of it. People.
Everyone's time is important.
The other reason, though, is if we cannot hold ourselves accountable, how can we hold the mayor accountable? We have to set up a culture that is about accountability. And Jane Borum says it shows we're organized. All right, that's about time. How was the agenda? Did we cover the things that we needed to do? You can put any comments in the chat. How was the agenda? And while you're at it, you could say, did the task force breakouts give us what we needed?
Oh, yeah, comment on
Good, busy but productive. Yes and yes. Thank you, Martha. Anybody else about the agenda or the task force breakouts? Breakouts were hearty. Detailed, accurate, and adequate time for breakout. Good. Well done. Breakouts were good. Very good. Meeting ran smoothly. Okay. If there was one high point of the meeting, what was it? Just put it in the chat.
Bless you.
Do we have a high point? Hearing about victories. Thank you, Marlee. Arlene, so many commitments for the core team workshop. Yes, indeed. Commitment time. NOAA's impacting the budget. We are making a difference and we're asking to be present. People are asking us to serve on boards and agencies and things. Breakout, getting to know people better, specific and concrete details from every task force. And Jonathan Rizzo texted his council member during the breakout. Good, that's what we want. Lots of information, victories. Okay, the third thing is tension. And we want to recognize tension. It can be positive tension that motivates us and gets us to do something different, or it might be negative tension, but we'd like to know about it. Where was tension in this meeting? And just unmute yourself and tell me.
Technology.
Technology, a little challenge in the breakouts. Okay, anybody else?
Kay was tense. She did fine in our opinion, I think. At least mine. But I think there's tension around. There's so much happening right now. It's so fast. And having the people that can show up for some of this stuff, that feels pretty overwhelming to me.
Okay, any other tension you people want to mention?
I think we had some tension in the education breakout, just trying to get straight what is in the budget, what's not in the budget. It's pretty complicated. So tension around that.
Okay, anybody else?
Hearing more than once the impending referendum.
Yes, the referendum, thank you. Any other tension?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what Liza said. Also in the Affordable Housing Task Force, we've gotten so engaged in things that like we're getting questions from council members that like we need to be policy experts. So there's tension about like how to respond to some of these very, technical questions. And like it's like NOAA needs like a policy shop or something. So
okay, good. Well, the fourth part to an evaluation is the political learning. And as you know, that doesn't mean who you vote for. It's just how is NOAA working in the city right now? And the thing that jumped out at me is I was in a meeting earlier with Reverend Thompson, and he started talking about 2012. In 2012, there were some people that were having conversations. They were having conversations saying, we need some sort of powerful organization that unites labor and congregations and everybody. How can we do that? And then Reverend Thompson went on and said, after those conversations in 2014, we had a commitment service. We had a covenanting event where people came forward and said, my congregation, my union will be a part of this. We're putting money in, we're putting people in. And then in 2015, 2016, we started taking action with candidates for mayor, started taking action on all these issues that you're looking at. So I think the political learning is, folks, we're in a different place than we were. Political learning is we have built some power and we can take advantage of that now and be able to succeed and add to our list of successes. I think for me, the key thing is building power and being serious about it takes persistence and long-term work. And that's where we are. Thank you, Reverend Thompson.
You're muted.
Reverend Merritt, would you close us in prayer?
A prayer from Dr. Martin Luther King. Let us pray. Ever-present God, you called us to be in relationship with one another and promised to dwell wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in our community. We are many different people. We come from many different places. We have many different cultures. Open our hearts that we may be bold in finding the riches of inclusion and the treasures of diversity among us. We pray in faith. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
So good to see everyone.
Yes. Oh, I gotta join another Zoom in about 12 minutes.
Peace, Reverend Wiggin. Peace, everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone have a good week.
Go in peace.
Yes.
Blessings.
Bye.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Hey, Leslie. Whoop, she just left. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.